Last night during the State of the Union address, something slipped, not from the podium, but from the frustration behind it. The U.S. trade chief made it clear that Canada will only get a deal if it accepts higher tariffs. In simple terms, accept the pressure first, then we will talk. That statement reveals a lot about where this administration stands right now. Because when a superpower says, you only get a deal if you surrender first, that is not confidence. That is leverage under strain. But here is what Washington did not expect. Mark Carney is not folding. He is not panicking, and he is not rushing into negotiations from a position of weakness. Instead, he is expanding. The U.S. position is straightforward. Accept higher tariffs, open your markets, and align with American industrial priorities. That is classic leverage politics. Pressure the smaller partner, extract concessions, and dominate the terms. However, leverage only works if the other side has no alternatives. And that is where this strategy may be miscalculated. Instead of pleading for access to the U.S. market, Canada has been steadily reducing its dependence on it. This is not just rhetoric, it is structural policy. Trade diversification, new export corridors, and long-term partnerships are now at the center of Canada's economic strategy. If Canada can redirect exports, secure new markets, and absorb short-term economic turbulence, then tariff threats lose their power. Blunt instruments do not intimidate disciplined leadership. That is why the rhetoric from Washington has become sharper, not because the strategy is succeeding, but because it is not working the way it was designed to. Donald Trump's negotiation style has often relied on asymmetry, apply pressure, create urgency, and force a reaction. But that formula collapses when the other side refuses to react emotionally. Instead of arguing about tariff percentages, Carney changed the equation entirely. He shifted the focus beyond North America and set ambitious goals for expanding non-U.S. exports over the coming years. That is not symbolic resistance, it is economic architecture. Around the world, when Washington imposed tariffs, many countries rushed to secure exemptions or quietly absorbed the cost. Canada chose a different path. It accelerated engagement in the Indo-Pacific, deepened relationships with the European Union, expanded agricultural access to Asian markets, and secured major investment commitments from Gulf partners. That is not retaliation, it is repositioning. And repositioning changes leverage. Carney's trade missions to countries like India, Japan, and Australia are not routine diplomatic visits. They are part of a broader triangulation strategy across major Indo-Pacific democracies. India offers massive consumer growth, Japan offers high-tech industrial collaboration, and Australia offers resource and security alignment. The message is clear. Canada's future growth will not depend on a single market, not even the United States. That shift matters because when U.S. officials say accept higher tariffs or there is no deal, they expect concessions and validation of their pressure model. But if Canada builds alternatives quickly enough, the entire pressure framework weakens. Ironically, the trade conflict may have accelerated Canada's global positioning. It forced diversification, strengthened negotiation posture, and created urgency around economic flexibility. In geopolitics, adversity often produces clarity. Canada now understands that economic resilience requires optionality, and in global trade, options are strength. This is not about ego or pride. It is about structural independence. The U.S. says, accept higher tariffs. Canada says, we will expand elsewhere. The U.S. says this is the only path to a deal. Canada signals that there are other paths. When a mid-sized economy refuses to blink under pressure, it sends a message globally. It tells other nations that alignment with Washington is not the only growth strategy. And it tells markets that Canada is willing to endure short-term friction for long-term leverage. The real question is no longer whether Canada caves. The real question is whether Washington adjusts to a Canada that is no longer economically dependent. Because this is no longer just a tariff dispute, it is a structural shift in North American trade dynamics, and the consequences of that shift could shape the next decade. So what do you think? Is diversification the right long-term strategy, or should Canada prioritize repairing ties with Washington first?